This is Bray Head on Valentia Island in Kerry. It is a beautiful place with amazing views, especially of the Gaelics. It's very popular with walkers. These largely go up the track to the signal tower on the top and return, oblivious to the amazing hidden history around them. I regularly bring people on historical walks here, and they love what they find here. Today, I want to talk about something very special here. Some ruins that are just off the trackway. From the trackway, they appear to be just a few stones poking out of the grass and undergrowth. Few would imagine that they contain interesting secrets and mysteries. For hidden here in open sight could be the Gaelic village of Crompeol. This appeared on the earliest map of Valentia, made at the end of the 16th century. While the ruins of a Gaelic village might not seem exciting, it is actually something rare. Gaelic Ireland came to an end in the 17th century. It was destroyed after the defeat of Hugh O'Neill in the 9 Years' War. Few Gaelic lords survived the tumults of the late 16th and 17th centuries. Those who did had to anglicise themselves, as the O'Briens of Thomond did very successfully. Gaelic Ireland was looked down upon by the English as something primitive, savage, and not worth preserving. Even when Gaelic culture and history began to be rediscovered in the early 19th century, few were concerned about a small, insignificant Gaelic settlement. Added to this, new towns and villages with a new type of architecture emerged, often built on earlier settlements, the remnants of which were destroyed. Gaelic houses were also often built of wood and clay, materials that rarely last. Here in Bray Head, they undoubtedly used these materials, but they also used a lot of stone. After the settlement was abandoned, stone was taken from the ruins on various occasions, notably when the track was being built to the top. However, much still survives, enough to see how the settlement grew over the years and to give us a window into the past. To me, this makes these ruins, these foundations of houses, enclosures and fields, something really special. Furthermore, this area has been excavated. The results of the different excavations show how the settlement emerged over town, with newer houses sometimes being built over older ones. This gives us an idea of how this special place grew and changed, and finally how it disappeared, how it came to an end. It is a complex site, but thanks to the archaeological excavations, it is possible to make sense of this area. I'll return shortly to the history of this settlement, the possible site of Crompeol. First, let us look at the ruins as they are now. It is divided into two clusters. The one lower down the track appears to be older. It consists of a number of foundations of houses, some enclosures, and other structures. If you look at the excellent historic environment viewer, the foundations or ruins of around 10 houses can be seen. These were generally circular or oval, with a diameter of 4 or 5 meters and with dry stone walls. However, they did not exist at the same time. It is important to note that these appear to have been built in at least 6 different phases, with some being constructed over parts of others. One of the huts had a souterrain, or an underground passage, though it's difficult to find it nowadays. Also identified nearby are a number of enclosures, perhaps used for animals, while there was also a field system. Much of the latter is south of the trackway that runs up to the signal tower. North of the settlement cluster, 2 corn kilns were found. Also to the north, or slightly to the northeast, is a trackway, which seems to lead to the settlement. The houses here were identified as early medieval. As mentioned, 6 stages of construction were involved. Based on the reports of the archaeologists, the earliest of these date back to the 6th or 7th centuries. The latest seem to be from the 12th or 13th centuries. We'll return to the history shortly, but let us look at the second cluster first. The other cluster is a little further along the track. Here, 6 houses in a row were built, running for almost 70 metres. They are different from those in the previous cluster, as they are rectangular, and some seem to have had 2 rooms and an annex. It's possible that the annex was used for storing food, tools, or even for housing animals. These houses date later than the previous cluster, and were also built in a place that had previously been used as a field. It has been speculated that this is a settlement referred to as Crompeol. Moreover, they have been dated to the medieval and early modern period, from the 14th or 15th centuries to the 17th. Not all the houses in the second cluster are this old. Some are older, possibly dating back to the same period as the other cluster. One of these has a souterrain. This underground passage is quite interesting. It has been speculated that it predates the house in which it is located. Although it has suffered some damage, its general outline is known. It's somewhat of an elaborate construction, consisting of a number of short tunnels, technically called creepways, and 4 chambers. It has also been speculated that the house in which part of it is now located is Norse in origin, somewhat similar to the settlement on the nearby Valentia Island. While this was built on top of a pre-existing souterrain, in turn another house was partly built on top of this. Let us turn now to discuss the possible history of this settlement, or indeed settlements. Initially, it seems to have been a farm, with buildings, a kiln for corn, pens, field systems, as well as marks of tillage, such as furrows and what are called lynchets. As can be seen from the above, this area seems to have been settled for a long time, almost 1,000 years. The round houses or huts in the first cluster dated to the 7th century or maybe even the 6th. Charcoal taken from a kiln was dated to the 10th century, or more precisely, within 110 years of 934 AD. Later material found in a furrow was dated to the 14th century, while material found in the second cluster also has a later date. Probably, this started as a farm. Originally, it was most likely connected to a nearby monastic site and dates back to the 6th or 7th century. This farm likely existed from the 7th to the 12th century, or perhaps a little later. Gradually, it appears to have expanded and became a small village, or a small settlement grew up near it. It is possible that at some period this village contained or was influenced by Hiberno-Norse. It's worth making a little diversion now to talk briefly about some of the history of Valentia. In the post-Norman period, the island came under the control of some O'Sullivans, and later the McCarthys. At the end of the 16th century, when a map of the island was drafted, it was divided between 3 different McCarthy septs. The western end of the island, including Bray Head and this settlement, was held by Slucht Cormac Ostungil. A middle part was held by Slucht Donald, while the McCarthy Moor sept, or the Earl of Clancarty, held the southeast corner of the island, but also Begnish and Ballycarbery Castle. Back to the settlement. As I said, over time, what was once a farm expanded, and in the later medieval or early medieval period, it had become a small village. This can tentatively be identified as Crompeol. Indeed, this village was identified on the first detailed map of Valentia, drawn either as part of the survey of the holdings of Donald McCarthy Moore after his death in the late 1590s, or for George Carew, Lord President of Munster in 1600. This village, Crompeol, consisted of at least 7 stone houses plus other constructions in what the archaeologists describe as a 70-metre long street. One excavated building measured 6.7 metres by 3.4 metres internally, had side entrances, drains and a central hearth. It was divided into 2 rooms and had another 2-room building resting against it, possibly for storage or animals. Material found here was dated between 1410 and 1620. Another building seems to have been refloored in the 17th century. It's also possible that there are other buildings which have not survived. We also know that this settlement was located in land held by Slug Cormac, who had land elsewhere in Iveragh, including in part of the Firth River and near what is now Glenbeigh. Hence, it makes sense to describe this as a Gaelic village. Although it may not seem like much, it is of great importance, as the ruins of Gaelic villages are very rare. As often, the houses of ordinary people would have been built from clay or wood, or they have been built on since and destroyed. After the 17th century, the settlement disappears. It appears to have been abandoned, possibly due to the wars of the 1640s and the Cromwellian invasion. Ireland suffered enormously during this period from war and the famine and disease the latter brought in its wake. It's possible, though, that some of the buildings remained occupied or were reoccupied and used for a further period. Some of the buildings seem to have lasted until the end of the 18th century and were demolished to use as stone for the building of the path to the signal tower. A sad end to this enigmatic and beautiful site. Bray in Valentia holds many secrets that are often in plain sight. I think these ruins are part of the settlement called Crompeol. I doubt that lords or famous people lived there. Nonetheless, these ruins provide us with a window into life in this part of Ireland over many centuries. What started as a farm grew, became a village before being destroyed in a war that destroyed Gaelic Ireland. Crompeol may not be famous, may be ignored by the vast majority of people who walk past it. Nonetheless, it is a special place with its own secrets and mysteries, a place that can provide those who leave the path with a precious perspective of the past. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, comment on the video, or share it. Grav Maha Grav Galer. See you soon.